what you guys are about to see is a work in progress. So this is episode 1 of what I'm calling Conversations with the Community. And given that it's my first episode and using different software to interact with somebody else and various changes in my format rather than it just being me having a conversation with somebody else, you're going to see all kinds of rookie mistakes, You'll notice I forget to do full screen on Discord. I forget to introduce the guy. His name's Elijah, by the way. I apologize, Elijah, for not properly introducing you. You'll see, the conversation just kind of naturally takes off. We do a decent job of sticking to the topic, but I think generally speaking, it just kind of bounces around a little bit. Not that that's bad, but I think going forward, I'll try and do better on my part to dive a little bit deeper into certain subjects, just because while I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and it was really fun, it was really fun to watch Elijah get so excited, because I kind of felt like a little bit of a kindred spirit. Like, it's just, I love music so much, and so it's so neat to talk to somebody who also loves music so much. So it was easy for me to enjoy that interaction. But I think from a listener's point of view, maybe you probably prefer something a little bit deeper. I don't know. All this to say, if you guys notice something and you have some constructive feedback that you want to give me, please direct it toward me. Okay? The key thing here is that Elijah's a guest. Anybody else who might come on to do something like this, I want them to feel like they're free to speak about whatever. And what I like to tell my son when it's coming to expressing himself, there's no wrong answers. Say what you want to say it however you need to say it, and then we'll just let it be. But if there's something that needs to be improved, I want that to be directed toward me. If the audio quality isn't good, if the topic wasn't interesting, if it's a little too long, if it's a little too short. Everyone's going to have different opinions, but if you guys notice something that immediately jumps out as like, ooh, I didn't really like that, please let me know, okay? I want to know. I want to do this. I don't know how it's going to work. It's going to be hard because I have to coordinate schedules with other people and come up with topics and stuff like that. But this is something that's very, I want to say, important to me. This is a key part of a true journey into hip-hop and the people it surrounds. Yeah. I guess that's it. Enjoy the show. Hope you like it. And if you're interested in being part of a conversation with the community, there's a clip at the end. I'll put a little bit more details on how to get a hold of me, what to expect, stuff like that. Okay? We'll see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I don't necessarily want this conversation to be a conversation where I, or where we dissect the album or anything like that.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, because I think it's been done to death.
Yeah.
And it's been done far better than I think either of us could really,
Yep.
I don't think we're going to get anything out of it that hasn't already been gotten out of it. But I think what I can bring to this discussion is my own personal experience with how I found this album, how this album impacted me, and how this album has kind of morphed and changed in meaning to me as I've grown up and continued to listen to it. Because I listened to it, most of it, on release day, like the day that it came out.
Oh, okay.
And so I heard all of that. Now, I didn't really get it. So I first encountered Kendrick in 2014. I was 11. I was 11 years old. I was a kid.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
So you listened to it on release day at 11 years old.
I did. So Good Kid, Mad City had been out for like 2 years at that point.
Yeah.
But I was 9 when Good Kid, Mad City
right.
came out, so I totally missed the cutoff on that. Like, I was not about to be sitting there bumping Good Kid, Mad City.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just remind me. So
great.
my son is in the 10th. He's 10 years old, so he's 4th grade. So you were listening to Good Kid, Mad City in the 3rd grade.
I would have been. I didn't listen to Good Kid, Mad City. But I was listening to Pimp a Butterfly in the 5th grade.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it was an interesting kind of thing for me because I heard that album and I think I listened to a little over half of it because it's. I'm a kid and it's really hard to get me to sit down and listen to an entire album in its entirety. But the fact that I even listened to that much of it it was really a testament to just how good the music
It's really
was
good.
overall.
It's really good. The music
The
is
production
interesting.
is
It just takes on its own. It was when I was even listening to it, I noticed how I didn't really take the time to focus on the music because the music was its own structure that just existed
Totally.
behind all of the lyrics, and it just carries, and it's got its own thing going on. It was really interesting.
Yeah, you could take the lyrics out of this album completely, just leave the
Yeah.
production, and you would have an incredible
Yeah.
and cohesive album.
I agree. I agree.
And then you add in Kendrick's lyrics, and that's what makes it an all-time great.
Yeah.
But yeah, just listening, hearing like I didn't at the time I didn't know of Thundercat or Flying Lotus
Okay.
or any of those people who worked on the production of this alongside Kendrick and really helped find this kind of funky sound. But I really liked it, and it really worked for me. Kind of hearing that for the first time because I grew up not really listening to rap because
Okay.
like, my dad is a first generation African immigrant, so
Okay.
he wasn't really in the hip hop scene or
Sure.
whatever.
What
he
what
didn't
kind of
come
music
here.
does he listen to?
A lot of reggae, a lot
yeah,
of
sure.
African, just
Okay.
in general, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'd hear a lot of that, and I'd like a lot of that. And then my mom was very into like the funk, the soul.
Oh,
Kinda, I'd hear a
cool.
lot of that
Cool.
kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. So I got a lot of things that maybe inspired parts of hip hop later down the line.
Yeah.
I was able
Yeah.
to appreciate it. I was able to appreciate it in that way. But it wasn't until 2014 when I first encountered Kendrick that I like actually started listening to rap. Because I started listening to rap. I got into rap with Because the Internet, which is an album by Childish Gambino.
Okay. Okay.
And that threw me right in. Because for me, a lot of hip hop that I had listened to at that point, it was a lot more mainstream hip hop, and it was a lot of stuff that I couldn't relate to. I thought the beats were cool, but I just couldn't relate to it,
Yeah, I mean, like topically, lyrically, it is
Yeah,
very
exactly.
different to get into.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. But Because the Internet, I'm a child, I'm a kid who grew up in the age of the internet.
Yeah.
I literally grew
Yeah.
up just
Yeah.
like with the entire internet at my fingertips. And so that was my experience. I was kind of raised by the internet. And so having Childish Gambino kind of speak to me on that, Because the Internet, talking about like my experiences and his experiences, and kind of I felt connected to that. And I was like, oh, I can get this out of rap. I can.
Cool.
This is what I can find from
Very
hip-hop
cool.
music. Yeah, and so that threw me into searching for other stuff. And I remember I found Kendrick for the first time on a Flying Lotus song called Never Catch Me. And it's a really kind of groovy, kind of chill song.
Okay.
And Kendrick hops on it, and I was like, who is this guy? Like,
Right.
whoa, his flow, his voice, and I
His
was like,
flow
I've never
and his
heard
voice, yeah,
anything
absolutely.
like this.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything
Yeah.
like this, and I was really enthralled. So then I kind of started to go back at that point, 2014, and listen to Good Kid, Mad City, parts of it.
Okay.
I didn't get it. I didn't really get it. I liked it. I didn't
Yeah.
get it. And
What were some of the tracks that stuck out the most to you on that album?
Good Kid, Mad City for me, especially like when I was let me pull it up so I can
Okay,
have like a
sure.
reference to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like actually listening to Mad City itself, just the song
Yeah.
Mad City,
That's a
that
jam.
was the one that I think everybody kind of listened to. That and Swimming Pools. right?
Swimming Pools, Mad
Yeah.
City, Peer Pressure is one of my favorites. Art of Peer Pressure. That's
Yeah,
a
the Art of
great
Peer
one.
Pressure. Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe.
Yes, that's a great one,
Was
too.
one of the ones that
Yeah.
I remember like bumping that with my friends and just being like, oh, Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe. This is so good. Like
Yeah.
just and I really enjoyed that. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. So I got a lot of that. But I didn't listen. I did not at all listen to the entire album, first
Okay.
track to last
Sure,
track,
sure.
and kind of get a cohesive experience.
Did you ever get into the back end where it's Sing About Me and Real and those closing sections of the album?
I did eventually, but not
Okay.
at the time.
Yeah.
Not at the time. I didn't. And I was listening to most of this stuff on just like YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So
Because the
I kinda
internet.
just be streaming it. Because the internet, exactly. And that's an album you got to go onto at some point.
Oh, it's been
but
suggested a lot. I really got to get onto that
yeah,
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very like different. Gambino's wordplay is a lot more kind of double entendre and
Okay.
kind of quirky and sometimes cheesy. To be honest, it's a little
Sure.
bit corny sometimes, but I don't know. That spoke to me at the time. I liked that kind of thing. He's not getting onto the really, really deep stuff that Kendrick is getting onto
Okay,
most
okay.
of the time. He does have some stuff like that. There's one thing I would ask you to react to at any point.
Yeah.
It's Childish Gambino's This Is America music video.
Oh, I think I saw that one time shortly after it came out because it was a big buzz about it. But like he's on like the blown out cop cars and running around like the construction building or something like that. I've seen that one time, but it's been years. So if I did watch it, it would really be a new experience for me.
I really think that's something you should react to, because that music video and just the things it speaks to, especially with the rise of everything that's happened in 2020, especially it means a lot right now. So if you get a chance,
no, I want to do that. It's a good idea, and thanks for the reminder because I do want to check that one out.
Yeah, no, of course. But yeah, so I was on the internet. I literally remember the night that To Pimp a Butterfly dropped. I was on my computer, like I literally always was, every single night. I just be on my computer, browsing the internet, on YouTube, doing whatever, and it's like new Kendrick dropped, and it's so I start to listen to it, and I think I got to like just past All Right. Let me see.
Okay. I should pull it up. I gotta pull it up on my side too, so I can look at it.
Yeah. So I got about halfway through the album, and I was like, this is great. Like, this is really good. I don't know why I didn't keep listening to it from then on, but to be honest, what I did is I just kept like bumping those songs, and from then on, All Right, King Kunta, Institutionalized, those became like my anthems, especially All Right. I would go, I'd go to school and I'd go to just hang out with my friends. Sometimes I'd be feeling down, sometimes it'd be this or that, and it's always just, we gonna be all right. That was my anthem. That was my this song kind of defines.
Other people have shared that sentiment too about that song, so it's cool to hear even you speak on it, just because I don't have all the lyrics in front of me, so I don't remember exactly right now, but it was an interesting song because it's got this weird dynamic of everything sucks, but we're gonna be all right. And it's an interesting, I don't know, like on one hand, maybe I get down too easily, and sometimes I feel like, well, no, it's not gonna be all right,
Yeah.
But it is a cool message of, no, man, you just got to keep pushing forward. You got to keep pushing forward. That's really what it seems to be saying.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it's saying. And a lot of what Kendrick gets into on that song is, like, there's nothing you can do about it right now for the most part. And so you have to be all right. You have to just keep going, because what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And that especially that song spoke to me, because I know Kendrick had like a terrible time growing up.
Oh
that
man.
City. Like,
oh my God.
His life is kind of fucked up. Like it's not. Yeah. And so if he's saying we gonna be all right, I'm gonna be fine.
It is a good point. Like if he can survive that, then we can survive whatever we're dealing with. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was motivating for me, and that made that song very powerful to me.
That's cool. That's very cool. I like hearing stuff like that. It's so neat when songs connect, and it's so cool how each person can have a different experience with a song for their own specific way. It's neat.
Yeah. And I think that kind of brings up the idea of like the meaning of a song to you versus the meaning of a song to the artist. When I first listened to Pimp a Butterfly, I wasn't getting kind of the message that Kendrick, or the story that Kendrick was really trying to tell here. Mm-hmm. I was kind of getting my own story out of it just from listening to the music, and in a lot of ways, I think that initially was more powerful for me to get something out of it for myself.
Absolutely.
Than to maybe get out of it what Kendrick would have gotten out of it when he was writing. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is too, is when you really get into the mechanics of what Kendrick is saying, the album is so personal to him.
It really is.
It would be difficult for someone else to get that, because he made it almost for himself, it seems like.
Exactly.
And then just put it out there.
Have you watched any of his MTV interviews at all?
I haven't watched a lot. No, I've seen a couple interviews, but I've probably only seen like 15 minutes worth of material with him talking to MTV or other people.
I think it's about 40 minutes in total. It's a 4-part like interview. Okay. Where he sits down, he just discusses this album in depth,
no
like,
kidding.
Track by track, with a guy who's like really cool, and like I'm just gonna put it in the general chat right here. I'm gonna link it for you.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think it's something you should watch just at some point.
Yeah, I will check that out.
Yeah, but that hearing him kind of talk about it, like he was saying, kind of just what you were saying, what you got out of it, that he was writing this for himself. Like this is a very personal thing for him.
Oh, absolutely.
He's not writing it. It's therapy. It's therapy for him.
Yeah, and it reminds me too of Frank Ocean's Blonde, how that album was for him too. It's just incredible.
Fantastic album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so let's. I mean, I'm loving this. This is great. I mean, this is a great conversation. But you wrote a paper on this album.
I did.
So, I mean, if you want to continue your story about how growing with this album as you grew up, but eventually you got to a point where you wrote a paper. So I'd love to hear, you know, the course that you're taking that had you write this paper, what you wrote on it, the things that you learned while doing it, and so on. So just go ahead and just tear off into that for a while.
Yeah. So, kind of throughout my entire education, Kendrick has kind of been a revered figure, which is interesting. Like, when I went into 9th grade, I still remember it was my first writing class of high school. We sat down. It was this, I don't know if it was my first day, but this is the first thing I remember of that class. We sat down and our teacher hands out everybody the lyrics to Humble from Kendrick off his next album, which I don't think you've listened to yet.
I haven't done Damn yet. No, not yet.
Yeah. But like we started talking about that album, or not that album, that song. And at one point in the song, you know, he's saying, like, I remember syrup sandwiches, talking about how he couldn't eat anything but syrup sandwiches. 'Cause, like, he was that poor.
Wow.
You know? And
wow.
I remember that got us into this one thing where this one kid was like, what do you mean? Like, why was he eating syrup sandwiches? Like, because he didn't understand the concept. Like, that was all he had. Like, he did not have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, and that got us into some really interesting, like, conversations around, you know, racial disparity, and like economic disparity, just class problems, you know?
All from one song.
All from one song.
Almost from one line in a song, huh? Syrup sandwiches.
Exactly. Like, and the fact that we were able to get into that, and we had a long ass conversation, like, and the whole class kind of chimed in, and I was like, wow, like this, we weren't even listening to the song, we were just reading the lyrics, and we were getting all this out of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
All this out of it, you know? And so, you know, Kendrick kind of starts out as just a figure that I'm aware of just in the writing sphere. And then I get to IB English in my junior year of high school.
Okay.
And there we're asked to, there are like a handful of artists who have won, I think, the Pulitzer for writing. And Kendrick is one of them. So we had, I think it was like John Lennon and Bob Dylan.
Oh, wow.
And a couple other people, and then Kendrick, you know?
Yeah, and he's definitely not into that rest of that group, no, at least those other two that you've named.
Not at all. And he was by far the most recent artist on that, like by like 30 years, you know?
Yeah.
Something like that. So I picked Kendrick, and I did like a whole presentation on just Kendrick's life. And that kind of prepped me, getting into Kendrick's life, kind of like understanding him, prepped me for the college paper that I ended up writing about Butterfly.
Yeah.
You know, so I had, leading up to this paper that I wrote, I had already kind of set Kendrick as a very revered writer, you know?
Yeah.
In my mind, and throughout my education, he was kind of just like one of those, you know, one of those greats.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he is one of the greats. I mean, I haven't heard you know, a wide amount of hip hop, but from the stuff I've heard, God, Kendrick is just up there.
Kendrick is at the top.
Up there.
Kendrick is at the top.
He's so good.
Absolutely. So then I get to, you know, this year, and I'm taking a writing 121 class.
Okay.
Just general writing, right? But we were asked to write about a piece of media, movie, TV, book, whatever.
Nice.
But like kind of just dissect it a little bit. And so I went into Pimp a Butterfly, and I just like, I listened to that Dissect podcast. You were talking about, and at the time I fell into something similar as you, where I kind of was like, I'm liking this, but I want to step away from it.
It's heavy. It's a heavy lift, man.
It's heavy. It's a lot, and it's also, I feel that I want to see if I can dive into this myself.
Oh, sure.
The help, you know, with so started to write that.
Well, and of course, I have to interrupt you because we all want to know.
No, do it.
And continue your story. But did you end up getting a good grade on this paper?
I did get a good grade. Now, here's the deal. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't love the paper I wrote because school deadlines. This is a topic that's like super important to me, and like this album is super important to me, and I feel that I'm not sure I really did it justice.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
Like, because deadlines and finals, and I had to turn it in like, you know, quick. So I had to rush it a little bit.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
not sure I got into all the stuff I wanted to get into, but I'm glad that I kind of got a chance to uh, dive deep into this, and I kind of had to find what made this album tick, you know,
yeah. So I mean, so what
and
did you find? I mean, in terms of
yeah.
what you think makes this album tick, what were some of the finer nuts and bolts to you on this one?
Well, the biggest thing for me is that like Kendrick is he's talking about, and this is something that's been touched on a lot, but he's talking about how the entire idea of To Pimp a Butterfly,
Yeah,
uh, it's something beautiful, something incredible, being like an artist,
yeah,
being pimped,
yeah,
someone who with a lot of talent, with a lot of artistic creativity, and that kind of just being used for financial gain for the record labels and
yeah.
whatever. But
It
then
re-
it's not.
it
No,
reminds me
continue.
of the interview I saw with Tupac, where the
Yeah.
guy asked him, "Do you feel like you're being pimped out?" And blah blah blah. And he goes on this whole. This answer was great. I can't remember it exactly, but he starts talking about all the kids that are going to buy the album from him and like who's pimping who, and all. It was a really great
Hmm.
answer, but it really
Hmm.
kind of touched on that whole idea of who's exploiting who and at what point and for what gain and all these different things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and Kendrick totally ties Tupac into that at the end
Yeah,
of the album with Mortal Man, but like he's very much like Tupac was pimped. Tupac
yeah,
it kind of experienced this thing with the record labels, and now Kendrick is kind of experiencing the same thing, but it speaks to a wider systemic issue where if record labels, these people with all the money and all the power, can kind of take these artists and just
yeah,
screw them over, just
yep.
totally screw them over
And it's
for
it's
gain.
the industry norm, which is so
It's
mind blowing.
completely the industry norm,
Yeah,
and then that leads to, well, what allows this industry to exist? And then it's even bigger than that.
I
It's even bigger
know.
than that, and that's really, I think, where the heart of the album is. It's speaking to not just like the issues with the record labels and the industry, but like those are all symptoms of a wider issue, and I
Yeah.
think that's really what he's trying to get at here.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially with the way that the album opens with the first two tracks about Uncle Sam, and then
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
the female personification of Uncle Sam, and all that
Yep.
stuff. It
Yeah.
really
You know,
hammers that in the beginning.
all the America sees the dollar in you,
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
gonna get it out of you, gonna squeeze it out of you. Come on, I'm
yeah.
your friend. I'll help you. I'll get you with the loans. I'll get you with whatever else. Just trust me. And that
Yeah,
that
what's
kind of
that? You
thing.
don't have receipts? That's okay. We don't need them.
Yeah,
It's
it's totally
okay. Yeah.
fine. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So he really gets into the wider issue with America and
Yeah.
its capitalist systems and all that, just
Yeah.
because that in the end is what enables the record labels to pimp a butterfly. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and from what I understand, at one point this album was called "To Pimp a Caterpillar."
That's what people have said because he's trying to make an abbreviation of
Of
Tupac.
Tupac, yeah.
Yeah.
I think "To Pimp a Butterfly" works better though.
I think so
I
too.
do.
Because I think what it does is it takes the message and it turns it. It's kind of like what you were talking about earlier with all right. We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. So he takes the message and just turns it and makes the outcome positive
Mhm.
rather than like you're saying, like we're just getting the crap kicked out of us and, there's nothing to
Yeah.
look forward to. Like, no, no, no. We're going to be all right. It's going to turn into a butterfly at some point. You just got to let it go through its stasis.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot to get in there, but yeah. So I'm trying to think of where to go with this next. Um, like music is a tool. That's obviously music is a tool, and different artists use it for different purposes. But Kendrick frequently uses it as a tool for storytelling.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
he's trying to convey a story, and often a very personal story, and he wields that tool just absolutely masterfully.
He really does. He really
Like
does. So much
it's
so that
incredible.
when I got to fully understand the context of these walls and what he's doing in that track
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
why, it makes me uncomfortable. Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's
No,
telling
because
that
it's
story
just
so well, I'm uncomfortable.
yeah, and that's clearly like he hates himself for doing that too.
Yeah,
It's a very personal, like you're kind of supposed to feel like Kendrick, like this isn't
yeah,
cool, this isn't really okay, but like
yeah.
you get it. You get his anger, you get his,
And
and
then when it
that's
dumps into you, it makes that track make so
loving
much
you
more
is
sense.
complicated. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
just
much
like
more sense.
Yeah, and that track too, you especially, is it's one of those tracks that it's so deep into kind of Kendrick's depression and
Yeah.
his you know, I think you always have this expectation versus the reality. Like Kendrick, you know, he looked up to Tupac, he wanted to become like Tupac, and then he did, and
Yeah.
now he hates himself. You know,
Yeah.
he sees himself as, you know, I have to set an example. I have to kind of follow in those footsteps. Am I doing it? Am I doing
Right.
it, or am I failing completely? And he says like, you didn't try.
Yeah.
You ain't try.
You ain't
You know?
try. You ain't try. Well, and
And
I
it's
can't
like,
imagine. Well, that was one thing that really surprised me with some of the Tupac interviews that I saw too. Was he talked about how when he made it big and he had all this money, he couldn't live in the hood anymore because that wasn't going to work. But then he couldn't live in the rich neighborhoods either because nobody wanted him there. So all of a sudden
nobody
he's
wants
completely
Tupac there, yeah.
displaced. He has nowhere to exist, and so that in itself is already a crazy concept. So I imagine Kendrick dealt with something
Probably
like
going
that.
through the same thing. Yeah.
And then it just
Yeah.
seems like he put so much pressure on himself to be this thing that he envisioned. And yeah, it's almost like it just crushed him. The thing that he created that he thought he was supposed to carry, this weight, this torch, whatever, it almost crushes him, it seems like.
It does. Yeah, no, it totally does. And the way that he sort of, I think he, I don't know if he realizes it, but just like by expressing this, he's doing more than enough.
Right.
Because
Yep.
artists don't often, like, there aren't a ton of artists, especially in the hip hop sphere, who will go into topics like this,
Yeah.
so personal. And so, especially with the mental health aspect,
Right.
like in hip hop, kind of looking at your mental health, it's kind of one of those things where up until recently, it's very much been a thing where it's like, you just keep it low. You know, you don't need to
Yeah.
talk about it. You don't need to
Well, and
express
it's
that.
I'm starting to notice a theme of as I understand more, the mindset of why making money and having fancier things is more important of a. It's almost like I crossed the finish line. I made it. I got out,
Yeah.
sort of a thing. Where I used to think, oh, I'm just trying to be flashy, but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like with hip hop, it seems like there's so much, at least in my current state of knowledge, it seems like there's so much emphasis on trying to cross that line and I made it, but then there's no discussion on what's after that line. And it seems like Kendrick is addressing what comes after that line when you actually do make it big and all, especially when you get into, I think For Sale, when he introduces Lucy and starts talking about the broader temptations. It's not so much the government or the system anymore. And now it's just
It's
everything.
his personal. He's going to parties and he's seeing like all this stuff, and how is he gonna like stop himself and say,
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's time to.
And it's something rock explores it a little bit. It's almost embraced a little bit. Like I think in the rock world, it's not so much about maybe having the cars and the jewelry and stuff like that, but it's more about like I made it. Now I can just self-indulge to an almost self-destructive state in all of these temptations that are around me. And it's almost like an expectation. Like, yeah, you have to have all these girls and drinking all the time and parties and you're just blacked out, and it's kind of ridiculous.
You're a rock star. No, because you're a rock star and that's what they do, and that's kind of where the whole thing comes from. Like, Freddie Mercury's snorting coke off of midgets' heads, like that. It's that kind of thing where it's like it's expected at a point. But yeah, it's self-destructive, like you said. Like it is self-destructive, and I think Kendrick is an artist who speaks on that very well. And another artist who speaks on that very well is like Danny Brown, like in his Atrocity exhibition album.
I really want to get into that one. I want to get to that one.
It's a really great one. But he also explores that idea of, I made it. Like this was everything I wanted to be, to become. And now that I'm here, what's next?
Right.
And the answer a lot of the time is sort of depressing. It's like, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Like,
what you just said reminds me of the movie Scarface. Have you seen Scarface?
Yeah, Al Pacino. At
the very end, when they're all just sitting at dinner and nobody's talking because they're all pissed off, and he's like, "Is this it? Is this what it was all for? So we can just sit here and eat the food and be pissed off?"
And that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's it's the expectation versus the reality. Once again, it's this isn't all it's cracked up to be, and like it's sad. It's kind of sad.
It is kind of sad. Yeah, it is strange how I even notice it with myself. With this channel where I remember making a video celebrating 100 subscribers. Like that was a big deal, and like, all right, cool. And then hitting 1,000 and whatever. But it's interesting how as everything progresses forward and things get bigger and bigger, immediately the brain just like, oh, well, now I want the next one. I want the next, and I want the next milestone. I want the next number, whatever it is. And I have to keep telling myself, shut up, brain. Like, enjoy where you are right now, because it's not going to last. It's going to go one way or the other. So just be here and experience it. And then when you get to the next thing, experience that, and so on, rather than this arbitrary line where you got to get to the line, but then once you're there, well, now you got to
get to the next line.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you know, I think people are doomed to always want more. Like, you know, you will always get used to what you have. And then once you get used to what you have, it's like, what now? There have been tons of studies about, like, how once you reach a certain level of wealth, you know, going past that threshold, once you're able to live comfortably, it doesn't matter, like, how much more you get after that, you'll never quite be happy. You know?
Right.
You'll never be like, okay, like, this is it. I've made it. I've made enough money. I have enough stuff. I'm totally great. It's like, no, I want more. Like, I need more. Like,
I've always
at a point.
I've always wondered when it comes to the super wealthy, if it just starts to feel like a video game where all they're trying to do is get a high score. I just got to get the high score. Yeah,
because at a point you can't actually visualize all that wealth.
No. And you can't even spend it. You can't even spend it.
And you can't spend all that wealth. Exactly. So at a point it's just like, let's get more. Let's keep doing it. I'm winning. You know, it's like an I'm winning mentality.
Right. And now, and that leads us to where we are right now. Man.
Right now. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I totally hear you.
What did you think about the end? The very, very end. Yeah. How it ended. How did that hit you?
Dude, I'm like, I don't think there's like a person on the planet who could listen to that and not be like just speechless afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I remember listening to that song for the first time, and this was after I'd listened to a lot of the album for a long time, because I started this album the day that it came out, and I just started repeat listening to like the first half of the album, like all the time. But I never, and I heard the beginning of his poem, you know. I remember you was conflicted, and I heard that a lot. And I was like, I wonder where he's going with this. I'm not gonna figure it out. Like, I wonder where he's going with this. I'm just gonna leave it, you know. And eventually, you know, I sat down and I listened to the entire album. And I'm laying in bed. I was laying in this bed right here, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, he's talking to Tupac, and hearing him do that, and hearing the way that he was able to make that sound like a real interaction, like a completely natural.
The one of the interviews I'd stumbled upon, it was him talking about how he met somebody who had this interview that hadn't been used and he got it, and he was like, yeah, I'm just going to use it specifically for the end. And but it just so happened that it existed and had not been released before. Yeah,
that's so lucky. But it was incredible the way, like, and you can really tell, like, Kendrick revered Tupac, like, really looked up to him, really saw him as this larger figure who did so much for the community and so much for him personally, and then he's gone. Pac, you know, he's gone. He's gone. And he was you know, he blossomed, you know, into a butterfly. He got pimped, and then he got his wings clipped. You know, he's dead. He's gone. And that's another hero who's, you know, not there anymore. Not around anymore.
What's your opinion on Tupac? How much Tupac do you listen to? I mean, where do you place him in terms of artists that you look up to, or maybe you don't look up to him? How do you feel about him?
I think Tupac, first of, like, I respect Tupac as a person, as an artist as well, but, like, really just as a person, the things he stood for, the things he talked about, the things he cared about. That, like, in that sense, Tupac is, like, the all-time great, because he really, like, he grew up, his parents were Black Panthers, and he sort of had that upbringing where he was, I don't know, he was a revolutionary. Like, really, he was a hardcore revolutionary.
He kind of was. I mean, talking about some of the things that he said, you know, the one thing that really blew me away when he said, you know, if I have $3,000 in my pocket and somebody asks for $1 and I give him $1, I feel bad. I feel wrong. I should give him more because I've got so much and he's got so little. Like, you don't hear that very often.
Because, you know, in general in society, it's very much like you get what you get and that's yours. You know, you don't need to share it. You shouldn't share it. But you know, Tupac had a different mindset, and I think, you know, for that reason alone, he's just incredible. And I understand why he's so influential. Now, that being said, you know, he was kind of past my time. And
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
by the time I was really getting into hip hop, there was a new sound and there was a new feeling. Don't get me wrong, I can still go back and bump some Tupac and it's nice, but it's not like it's not. He doesn't have the effect on me that modern artists
Sure.
do, really.
That reminds me of something. It's kind of off topic, but I've noticed how, when I listen to rock, I can go all the way back to the 60s and there's a lot of stuff there. And so really, when I think of rock in terms of what I listen to, there's about 80 years worth of music there.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop really, I know it started to develop in the 80s, but it seems like it really took off in the 90s. And so now we're here in the 20s. So I look at hip hop and I go, there's about 30 years of music there. It maybe a little bit more, but just generally speaking.
Yeah. No, right.
It's interesting to me that hip hop has evolved so much over
fast.
such a small period of time relative to what I've seen happen in rock. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know what drives that, but I mean, maybe what do you got an opinion on that at all?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you recognize that. I think a lot of what drives that is that it's the need to prove that rap is something real. There's so many naysayers, so many people who say rap.
That's an interesting
rap
perspective.
Is crap. Rap is, and so when you have all this pressure, all these people kind of saying, this is nothing. Like, what are you even listening to?
Right.
This is garbage. This is
right.
completely unsubstantive, and there's
Whereas,
no talent here.
Yeah, where rock has just been allowed, basically.
Yeah, more or less. And there's always the previous generation that's kind of like, what is this? But like, I think rap really had a hard time, especially coming from poor Black communities. That's kind of where it started. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of come up from that and make it into the mainstream and prove that you're good? You have to keep evolving and keep pushing and keep creating something new until eventually they have to notice. They have to say, okay, fine, you've made it. You can't just keep denying forever. I mean, some people will, but you have to acknowledge the artistry at some point.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. I had never even considered that, honestly.
Huh. I don't know. I think that's really what's at the heart of it. It's just a need to prove.
I wonder too how much technology has played into it, because with rock, I've always enjoyed rock, and it's interesting to watch rock evolve, even though it does seem to do it slowly. But I wonder how hamstrung they are by just the whole drums, guitar, bass, vocals. Whereas with hip hop, you can do samples, you can make your own beats, you can use keyboards, you can use guitars. Like, there's this huge amount of instrumentation that you can pull from, like a much broader toolkit. And I wonder how much technology, as computers come in and making beats and stuff like that, has allowed just more freedom in the genre.
Well, I'm glad that you touched on that too, because like that gets into the whole concept of the internet has completely changed. How the music industry works. When people like Kid Cudi were coming into the industry, they got in just on niche music stuff. Like, they were uploading their stuff to MySpace.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like I think Day and Night maybe was a song by Kid Cudi that just blew up, and that was
strictly because of the internet.
Strictly because of the internet. Wow. He uploaded it and he got there, and that's what got him the attention of Kanye and these other artists.
Oh, cool.
And that's when he kind of got to break into the industry. And Danny Brown is the same thing, and all these artists kind of started to make it into the industry in the age of the internet, when it was kind of the Wild West, essentially, too.
Yeah.
And you kind of could, and now you're starting to see the industry, take that.
They're clamping in again.
Clamp in on it, exactly. And now it's getting harder again. But because, like you said, so many people have access to beat making tools and software, and I have friends who are making music that's pretty good, to be honest. I know, but like, to break in, you need to be doing more. And I think that too is part of where the the innovation comes from, because it's so oversaturated at this point.
Right.
There's
You
so
have
many
to stand out.
You have to stand out. Everybody wants to be a rapper. You have to find a sound,
right?
And either create a new sound, which is nearly impossible at this point, or take a sound that exists and innovate on it to the point where people are like, okay, this could go somewhere else,
Yeah. I think about Playboi Carti. Kind of, I know we're getting off of To Pimp a Butterfly, but I just did Dial It, and when I listen to Playboi Carti, I feel like that specific genre, that region of sound, has a lot of room. Especially when he's starting to incorporate these guitar elements on his live shows and stuff like that. Because I feel like if somebody like Playboi does what he's doing with his sound, introduces a little bit more sound, and then can kind of bring in some more lyrical substance. I feel like there's just plenty of room there for somebody to just take what he's done, even him, and just go to the next level.
Just go there with it. Yeah. I regret so much that I missed out on Cardi's concert.
Oh, you had a chance to go?
I sort of. It was like $200 by the time for a ticket on the floor by the time I got around, and like almost all my friends went, and I was like, and I saw the videos and it looked great.
Yeah.
But like it's interesting, I'm curious to hear, like, how do you feel about just like, because you kind of dived into Playboi Carti, before Kendrick too, right? And and those are so opposite,
very different,
very different sides of hip hop. Like I love Die Lit. Die Lit was my most listened to album.
Oh, no kidding!
I listened to it so many times.
Oh, wow!
But it's not an album I go to for the depth. It's not an album I go to. It's an album I go to because the beats are catchy and they loop, and I'm like, that's the song. I'm in the car with my friends. Like those songs, off Die Lit and Whole Lotta Red eventually, like those were the ones that like really just I'm always bumping. But they're not the ones that I listen to and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It is a different listening experience, that's for sure. It is. For me, obviously you can tell I'm very much into lyrics. I enjoy lyrics and really getting into them, and I love a story being told, and I love learning about an artist from what they're saying. And that's why I feel like Playboi, he does have room there if he wants to open up. I think there's a lot of potential that exists in terms of just taking, because he's doing some stuff really well, but it seems like there's some stuff that's untouched, like lyrics. And so
I really
Go ahead.
I respect Playboi Carti a lot, like as an artist, and I think he has a great sound, but I'm not sure that he is the artist to take that sound and evolve on it lyrically.
Yeah, I almost feel the same way. Like, who knows? We'll see. Yeah. We'll see where it all goes. But I feel like there's a gap that exists where somebody could get there and occupy that space of having the sound, having the beat, and then there's some lyrics that really drive a story with everything that's going on.
Now, I think there is, I don't know if you've heard of JPEG Mafia at all.
I'm doing Veteran on Friday. Well, not Friday. But
Are you really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah. It'll actually be Wednesday because of the holidays and stuff, but I'm doing that one soon. Very, very soon. Yeah,
Peggy is fantastic. I actually got a chance to talk to him. I went to his concert when he came here to Portland recently.
Oh, cool.
He stayed after to like sign people's stuff, and I had like a very short kind of interaction with him, but he's just like a very down-to-earth dude. But like the music that he is making right now kind of reminds me of like he's experimenting like sonically with his production a lot, but then he's also kind of experimenting with his lyrics and going a little bit deeper. It's very, I don't know, it's very tongue-in-cheek, it's very angry sometimes.
Cool.
Especially on All My Heroes Are Cornballs, which is a great album from him. He gets very like experimental with everything, like really with everything, and he keeps going with that. So I think there are some artists who are, it's not quite the same sound that Carti and Pierre are kind of engineering. But it is a really interesting route that he's taking. Have you listened to any of Pierre Bourne's stuff at all? Not
directly. I've found out recently that he produced almost all of Die Lit. So
almost every beat on Die Lit is Pierre Bourne.
But I haven't listened to his albums yet.
Yeah. I think Pierre is an incredible. I don't know if it would be up your alley. I guess. I think with Die Lit, after listening to your thoughts on Die Lit, I think probably Pierre's a little bit, I don't know, it's a lot more of the same sort of.
Oh, okay.
And very repetitive, lots of loops, lots of, like, you can listen to the first like 40 seconds of a song and hear the entire thing. And for me, a lot of the time I really like that. I kind of like the repetitive.
Yeah.
But it's not always great. And I think it's, I don't know.
Well, I think I don't want to get too off into the Playboi side because I want to try and stick to Pimp a Butterfly, but just while we're here, sure. I was thinking about it today, and I think it's a different listening experience. And I listen to dark ambient. I listen to weird soft drony sounds. You can't even really call it music. It's more of like just sound.
It's just like sound.
Yeah, and so I think it's a little easier for me to at least understand the enjoyment people have with Playboi Carti, because when I was driving home the other day and I had time to listen to Die Lit twice in a row, just uninterrupted while I was driving, and I noticed that my thoughts were just kind of drifting away, but the music was just there. It was just there.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just hanging out with me. It wasn't something I had to focus on. It was like, no, it's just these beats are going and I'm just driving, and it was cool. And it started to feel a bit more like an ambient experience where I just have something there to listen to.
I feel very similarly about that. Yeah, I think when you get into To Pimp a Butterfly or Damn or any of the Damn less so, but To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City especially.
Yeah.
You have to listen. Like, you can't just kind of have it on in the background.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Album this is at all.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for music that can kind of just be in the background. But and I think that's great. But what Kendrick is doing is so much more important.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you don't want to think.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Sometimes I just want to chill.
and that is why Die Lit was my most listened to album.
Sure. Well, and it's probably great for studying, right? You just throw it on and study.
Oh yeah, throw it on and you're just chilling. You write things, you read things, you do whatever. Math, have stuff bumping in the background. It's great.
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot here because people have asked me this and I have not answered. Which one's better, Die Lit, or not? I'm sorry, not Die Lit. I'm Good Kid, Mad City, or To Pimp a Butterfly?
Pimp a Butterfly.
Okay.
To Pimp a Butterfly.
That was a fast answer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good Kid, Mad City's great, and amazing, and I think it tells a more cohesive story. Like it has more of a storyline, even though it's a little bit disjointed. It has a story that's more, I don't know, personal and anecdotal.
I think it's more powerful in that sense of how personal it is.
That's true. I just think. And I think for me as well, I really like the direction, the funk kind of direction that Kendrick went with To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah, the sound. I agree with that.
I love that sound.
I agree with that.
And that, I think
Thundercat is crushing it on the bass on that one.
Thundercat is incredible. He needs, like, I don't know. Right now, he's kind of like, a lot of his stuff is a little bit more goofy. It's a little, he's a little goofy with it. He's so talented.
He's very good.
His production, it's absolutely incredible. And his album, Them Changes, is a really great song by him. That, you should maybe check out at some point. It's very just like, I think that is like my favorite Thundercat song because it just perfectly embodies like what he can do, and like his voice is nuts too. It's just great.
Yeah, he is a pretty good singer. I was doing a live stream and somebody told me to watch the NPR Tiny Desk with him. He's got like 3 or 4 songs, and it was so fun to watch him.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Totally fun. Man, I'm excited to see what you think of Peg Mafia. His concert was my favorite I've ever been to.
No kidding.
He's great. Yeah, he's just got so much stage presence and energy, and like very.
That's
wild.
cool.
He's a wild dude.
I watched. It was a while ago, but I watched a good portion of his interview at Cambridge, and I was like, this guy is awesome. Like that, just listening to him talk for like 30, 45 minutes. I was like, I want to hear this guy's music. He sounds very interesting. It sounds like a brain that is really just like challenging everything that exists within inside his head. I really want to, I'm looking forward to listening to his music.
Great. Yeah. I think his I think we're getting kind of towards the end of,
I think we've naturally kind of discussed our To Pimp a Butterfly, and we're kind of probably getting towards the end.
if there's something I would really want to leave you with a few things, it's some of my favorite albums of this year that I think not necessarily things to react to, but just things to listen to and be aware of.
Yeah.
But JPEG Mafia's newest LP, I think it's just called LP.
Yeah, I think so too, because people have recommended that. It's just LP with an exclamation point on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is my second favorite album of this year. It's
really no kidding. Incredible. What's your favorite of this year?
By the Time I Get to Phoenix by Injury Reserve.
Okay.
That album is like, I truly and genuinely believe that in a few years' time, that album will be like seen as a bouncing off point for a new sound in hip hop.
No kidding.
Kind of a next generation type of deal.
Interesting.
I think that's an area where hip hop's going to be evolving. It's a hard listen. It is.
Really? Is it because of the beats or the lyrics or what?
Both. The beats. It's very unconventional. Kind of the rhythm's a little off sometimes, and it feels like very like it's kind of anxiety inducing.
Oh, interesting.
Sad. You know, just
Interesting.
the way. Part of the reason that album hits so hard is because Injury Reserve was made up of 3 people, and one of them died
Oh.
during the making of this album, and he had cancer, and he knew that he was gonna die.
Oh.
So that's kind of baked into the album. This idea
Yeah.
of like sorrow and losing someone, and the beats like reflect that. My favorite song of the year, Top Picks for You, is just like crushing to listen to. It's just
Wow.
it hurts to listen to, but it's
Wow.
like such an incredible piece of work. And I think if there's one album I would ask that you listen to this year, it is probably that one, just because I think it's like album of the year. I think it is album of the year.
Interesting. Interesting. This is cool. I don't think any. What was the artist's name again? The group?
Injury Reserve.
I don't even know if they've been mentioned before.
Yeah, they're a little bit. I mean, they're kind of rising, but they've always been a little bit more on the lower side of hip hop. But yeah, By the Time I Get to Phoenix is an incredible project, and I think if you have a chance to check anything out, check that out. I guess if there's like albums I would really recommend you listen to, it's By the Time I Get to Phoenix, Because the Internet, Atrocity Exhibition.
Yeah.
I'd recommend Peggy stuff, but it looks like you're already getting into that.
Yeah, Peggy in a couple of days. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you'd really like Because the Internet. I think it would be up your alley. It's not as deep conceptually as Kendrick's stuff, but it's not trying to be. It's doing a very different thing.
Okay.
And he tells a really great story, and reading the screenplay while listening to the music is interesting as well.
Nice.
So it's a whole thing. But yeah.
Well, man, this was a lot of fun. I thank you very much for being my first official guest on Conversations with the Community.
Conversations with Community, episode 1. This is great.
Yeah, dude. If you would like to participate in an episode of Conversations with the Community, please let me know. You can let me know via message on Twitter. You can send me a message through Patreon if you're subscribed to that. Or on my homepage on YouTube, there's a link for a contact email that you can use as well. A couple of things to consider before you do so, though. First of all, you need decent audio equipment. It doesn't have to be a $100 microphone, but at minimum, a decent gaming headset with a microphone so that the audio is nice and clean and clear, because that aspect of something like this is critical for the listener and their experience. Second, need Discord, but if you're on PC, that's a simple download and it shouldn't be a problem. Third, and unfortunately, I need you to be over the age of 18. YouTube gets really, really weird when it comes to kids in videos, and if you're under 18, you fall into that category, and there's probably a lot of legal ramifications I'm completely unaware of, but I just need to stay above that age so that YouTube doesn't just freak out and do whatever the hell they're going to do. With that, there's some other things I'd like you to consider. Whatever topic that you have, whatever you'd like to discuss, I would really like it if it has some deep personal meaning. Now, that doesn't need to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to surround something that was negative in your life and you use music to survive. But it does need to have deep personal meaning, such that we're not just talking about an album and going, yeah, that one was cool, and the sound is cool, and the lyrics are cool, because that's surface level things that don't really bring a lot of interest to outside listeners. I want to know why you love an album. I want to know why you love a song or a lyric. Why did these things connect with you on a personal level? What was happening in your life that made it matter so much? That's the kind of stuff that's compelling. So please consider that if you want to have a conversation like this. And lastly, also consider the idea that speaking is a bit of a skill. You know, it's fun to have casual conversations with friends where you're not really paying attention to how you're speaking, but when you get into a video format like this, when you're pausing and you're saying and this and that, it makes the listening experience a lot less enjoyable. I'm not a perfect speaker. I've practiced a lot. I'm actually improving because of this channel, but it is a challenge. It is a challenge. So please consider that as well. And if you think you can meet all those criteria, please let me know. I'm very interested. This whole little side project is very important to me because as I journey deeper and deeper into hip hop and get to understand the music, I'd also like to get to understand the people it impacts and how and why. I think it's a magical thing, especially if somebody can come on and say, these lines affected me in this way, and then all of a sudden, thousands of other people can hear that line again for the first time with a new perspective and go, oh, wow. And maybe we all end up liking the song a little bit more, which is good fun. There you go. Thank you. Take care.